Good evening, Richard Williams.
Good evening. How are you after that battle of the Death Star or whatever we're going to call it?
I've no idea. I've absolutely no idea. I've no idea how to process that 112 minutes of reckless chaos. Ugh. I sure hope that
Well,
all of those people on Twitter over the last few days who have been confident that we were absolutely going to batter Atletico 5-0. I even saw one prediction of 5-0. I'm sure hope that they might reevaluate their opinions and knowledge and maybe concede that they don't know frig all about football. That was exactly what we said it'd be from Atletico, and
mm,
worse from Atletico.
worse in that they actually, there was some challenges there that went beyond even what I was expecting from them, and unfortunately, the referee, uh, unusually for Europe, where they're usually quite card happy, decided he was going to let things go. And because he let things go, it allowed things to get pushed further and further. And I think Phil Foden saw, more hits coming his way than he does when he goes to the boxing with his mum. I think, we really saw the ultimate in shithousery. And the best thing about the whole game for me was the huge element of karma in that game, because Atletico had an absolutely blatant penalty, and was it
Well,
Correa? I can't remember.
all right, Rich. We're
Who
getting
dived
way ahead
so
of ourselves. Rich,
dramatically
you're going to
that
the last.
karma came round.
You're fast forwarding until the last 10, 15 minutes of the game,
I
Rich.
am.
Let's get into. Let's be a little bit more methodical about this. I'll fire a thing at you, and you give me a rebuttal.
Yep.
Rodri can't play DM. Full stop.
Um, I think Rodri's shown he can play DM. He can't play DM when he's getting 5 against 1, because we couldn't hold possession all over the park. We didn't have Bernardo was not playing his usual position, so he wasn't coming back in helping Rodri. And I felt we were just overloaded in midfield when they went forward quite a number of times. So Rodri was stuck, one player one side, one player the other, one player coming at him, and he didn't look comfortable. It wasn't certainly wasn't a good game from him. And I don't know whether the booing he was getting, certainly all the first half, whether that was affecting him too. But it wasn't for me. It wasn't just Rodri. I felt in the first half of the game it was only really Mahrez to me, and even he was a bit greedy. Who was looking like he was playing close to his normal game.
I don't
Um,
even feel we had enough of the ball, Richard, for you to even give that level of detailed analysis on our performance in the first half.
well, I mean, but that is the detail, isn't it? We keep possession. We keep the ball. We move around in the attack, and we just didn't do that. Foden had lost his head a bit. Not unsurprising after the assault on him, which
Phil Foden now
well,
knows what it's like to have gone 10 rounds in a boxing match against prime
yeah,
Mike Tyson, which was
yeah.
just
I mean that was
unbelievable.
yeah. I mean that was a straight red, and people would talk about, was it a yellow? No, it was a straight red. It was an assault, a deliberate assault as well, because he had no intent and knew he wasn't going to get within a metre of the ball. So he just went in to smash the back of Phil's head. It was, outrageous.
And outrageous is an understatement, Rich. I'm serious.
Yeah,
This is another game now. I mean, I was exactly the same with the Atletico first leg, where I was just mentally trying to process it, and then the Liverpool
mm,
game mentally trying to process it. Um, that the most positive thing I can say about tonight as a football match, and this isn't about being a City fan or a negative City fan or being a football fan or anything like that. Manchester City progressed to the semi-final of the Champions League. That's my takeaway from this. I've got something I want to ask you, Rich, and I'll ask this early
yeah,
doors so we can get it out of the way. Chelsea played against Real Madrid last night, and
yeah.
and for anyone who watched that game of football last night, it was a corker. some people would say. It was an incredible game of football. The cataclysmic defending from both sides, but an incredible game of football. Chelsea played on the Tuesday night, and then they play in the FA Cup semi-final on Sunday. We played tonight, and we play in the FA Cup semi-final on Saturday. How is that a thing? So that's a quick question for you. That's almost a side question on the game tonight. Okay, the first half. Okay, so we started the game, first 20 minutes. Bernardo Silva was playing wide left. Now, you were talking about how we were overloaded in midfield. I would suggest that we looked less vulnerable in midfield once Bernardo Silva got off that left-hand side and came into the midfield. But I've always said that anyway. That's always been my primary argument. Everyone's bored of me making it.
Yeah. And then, for a time we had Gundogan playing false nine where, he can do it with the passing, but he just doesn't have the strength, penetration, pace to cause too much worry to an experienced defence, especially when they've got three centre-backs. So Bernardo came back, but we still didn't get that foothold even then. And, even then he wasn't playing his usual Bernardo game in games like that where he comes back almost alongside Rodri and really helps us build from the back. We didn't see that much of it. He got back to defend a bit, but and just even say Cancelo wasn't his usual self. It was almost like Simeone had got in the City heads, and we were just thinking.
Okay, well, do you want to talk about City defensively? Because I think one of the biggest criminals tonight in defence was Kyle Walker again. Unfortunately, if you want to, I just want. Although we are not going to talk about the second half until we talk about the second half, there was one very clinical deflection, and that was made by John Stones. And I do believe that John Stones, until Nathan Aké came on, was our best defender tonight. I thought that Kyle Walker was a bit 6s and 7s, and I also thought Cancelo was a bit 6s and 7s as well. But normally, Cancelo redeems himself by being 6s and 7s defensively, by being good in attack. But I'm not convinced about his attacking CV tonight.
Not today, no. I mean, I would have slightly disagreed with you in that I thought, for me, Laporte was better for most of the game than Stones.
You need to clarify now. You really need to clarify.
Okay, defensively.
Because his passing was awful, Richard.
Yeah, but there wasn't a player on that team today whose passing was close to the standard I'd expect. They were. You told me just before we came on that we were 91% completion, but that was probably all those 3-metre passes backwards as we took the ball from the edge of the penalty area back to the halfway line and forward again slowly. Stones worried me a little bit in the first half because I thought Felix was starting to get the better of him. Stones was pretty close, I think, to letting them break with the offside a couple of times in the first half, and he also looked like Felix. Felix turned him a couple of times, so he was worrying me a bit. He did make one good stop, and I think Laporte got a really crucial blocking and got back to Griezmann. But what you were saying about Cancelo, Cancelo made 2 errors in that game, one of which is going to cost him his semi-final place. But maybe he had to take that, I don't know. But I think he gave a penalty away.
I just want to take a slight intermission, Rich, to now Chris Baker put a point in the chat there. He said our Prime Minister, referring to people who live in the country of England, is a criminal and a liar. And some things are bigger than football. Fuck the Tories. Yeah. Back to the football. Okay, what about our attacking options tonight then, Rich? Mahrez, Foden. De Bruyne. I think De Bruyne looked absolutely exhausted.
He did. And I think he took a knock in the first half because he was, after about 25 minutes, he was hobbling. He wasn't running freely. So I think he was knackered after playing the 2 games he's played in the week, but I also think he had a bit of a knock as well. I mean, they said afterwards it was an impact injury, so maybe he's just got a dead leg or he's got a bruise.
I think there's a lot of bruises. I think there'll be a lot of strapping and a lot of ice tonight. Yeah. I want to say a comment there from I've not seen the name before, Nixie, a new guy. I'm going to say his comment because he'll only keep repeating it because he said it 2 or 3 times now. City didn't play good at all. But the game, and that's a quote. But the game came down to a malice mind game. Who can outsmart each other tactics? I don't even think tactics came into consideration tonight. Other than I'm going to be a bloody bastard. That wasn't tactical football. That was just that was kamikaze with a second life. It was ridiculous.
And City kept their heads just, and most of the players kept their heads reasonably well. I think Foden had lost his, but then I'm not surprised. I mean, after what he took from that Felipe early on, and then that absolute shithouse little kick as he goes off. I mean, that was just, it was appalling. But I guess that's all Simeone felt that Atletico had, and it is actually sad because they've got some good players. They have got some good players.
Got some very talented players.
Some good attackers, and to waste them like that.
Can we go back a little bit before we move on to the second half? Let's discuss a little bit about the conversations we've had in this week between the games. I fully expected for Atletico, and I did make these comments, for Atletico to play the way they did in the first leg. And I also expected I hope you'll back me up at that. I did say this is how they played tonight. Their game nearly paid off for them, Rich. And there was a couple of occasions in that game where they had that ball pinging about the area, and they very nearly got what they wanted out of it. And the crazy thing is that they played the most horrendous brand of anti-football, brutal football, almost hooligan football, and very nearly got what they wanted. And I think, what does that mean for football? When me and you both remember the Crazy Gang, we remember Wimbledon. We remember the anti-football of Wimbledon. And again, like you just said there, Atletico have some very skillful players. Wimbledon did as well, believe it or not. But they didn't play to that. They played to the brutality. It was almost like a gladiatorial arena. Now everyone, sorry to go on a tangent here, but everyone has this romanticised view of ancient Rome, gladiators, thumbs up, thumbs down, and all that. The gladiatorial arena in that part of the world was brutal. Guts flying everywhere, people vomiting, blood splattering everywhere, lions and bears fighting, and that's what it was on the football pitch tonight. It was absolutely horrific. If tonight's football game was a film, it would be the first 10 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. It was shocking, absolutely shocking.
Yeah, but City need to deal with that, because though it wasn't to the same degree, that isn't that unlike what Chelsea did to us in the Champions League final. Chelsea went in far harder than we were expecting. They did some of the dark arts. They, Kante, had a stormer in midfield. And I think City do need to learn that there are going to be teams who are defensively brilliant, a good shithousery, and then can get a goal on the break. So I think tonight, although it was taken up, 5 notches from Chelsea, there were lessons tonight that were lessons from the Champions League final last year that we need to know to deal with. I'm not sure that, unless Villarreal beat Liverpool, I'm not sure we might have to deal with a team.
We'll have to
playing
deal with
like
Liverpool.
that.
We'll have to deal with Liverpool.
But Liverpool aren't gonna.
No, Liverpool will try and play. Although, can I just say, by the way, you say Liverpool won't play like that, but bloody hell, Rich, we've just played Liverpool. We've just played with cameo there by Richie Child. We've just played Liverpool, Richard, and they kicked the crap out of us. So I mean, going from Liverpool kicking the crap out of us to Atletico kicking the crap out of us, we've been through the wars, as my grandma would say. Okay, I just need to read a comment, by the way, from Football Guy in the chat. Apparently, the team who knocks Atletico out historically goes on to win the competition. Healthy omen. Do you buy into that sort of stuff?
Real Madrid,
are you a lucky underpants kind of guy?
It's usually Real Madrid who knock Atletico out. Certainly, they've beaten them twice in finals in recent years, so you might well be right on that.
Okay, so do you want to now go into the second half? And my goodness, we're going to need 6 weeks to dissect the second half, surely. Do you want to break the second half down into stages? Like talk about the first 10 minutes, the second 10 minutes, and then that absolutely cataclysmic last 30 minutes? How do you want to do this?
Well, I think we saw, we can do it like that. I mean, we saw on the weekend how I thought City came out a bit asleep second half. Walker made that stupid error to let Liverpool back in the game.
That's exactly where I was going to go with it, Rich.
Again, I thought we came out just a bit sluggish, and it was Griezmann we let get in, and Laporte got back just in about almost exactly the same 46th minute as we let Liverpool in, and I was hoping that was a bit of a warning to the team, but we just didn't really switch on. Whilst we'd had a semblance of control for some of the first half, in that Athletic didn't threaten us that much. In the second half, we lost composure up, through the team, and we just left our defence just constantly under.
Do you not
threat.
think, Rich, in the last 3 or 4 games, and I don't want to say before the last 3 or 4 games because my memory's not that good, but in the last 3 or 4 games, have our defence been disjointed from our attack? Have we lost a little bit in the transition?
I think we haven't been keeping the ball throughout the team as well as we have done. So I think it's defence from attack, but I think it's also the mids from attack. I think we just haven't been quite as clinical in our passing and maybe quite as intense in our movement. The exception is against Liverpool, where we did have large chunks of that game where we played exceptional football, but it's almost like there was some kind of boost we got from playing Liverpool that took us to a level that we haven't seen that much this year.
I'm still dreaming about the 2 5-minute periods from led by Kevin De Bruyne. Unbelievable.
Mm.
Oh, okay, so the second half's progressing. Atletico, would you accuse Atletico of becoming increasingly desperate, or was the game sort of playing more into their hands? I'm not trying to lead you. I'm just asking the question.
I think let's be honest. When you get to the 65th minute, they're out if they don't score. So, is it desperation, or is it their tactics were to, keep it as it was for an hour and then go for it with half an hour to go? I don't know. I think it's both. I don't think Simeone really released them till 10 minutes or so into the second half, and I think that was tactics. But I think clearly those tactics become desperation because you're out if you don't score. Whereas City knew, if we don't let Atletico score, we're through. And we're thinking, well, we've got to keep them out, and we can maybe get a goal on the break when they start attacking and release their defence. But even in their desperation, they were still pretty much leaving their 3 centre backs, rock solid defending. I mean, the odd dead ball they came up, but they still weren't leaving that much space. Simeone was still, until about the 98th minute, thinking,
oh, you're getting ahead of ourselves there, Rich. We're not quite in the 98th minute yet. Can I ask ask you, Richard? Sorry, no, go on if you want to finish your point. Sorry.
And I think one thing that helped that stopped them scoring in that desperation is that they never actually tried to outnumber us or even match us for numbers. Once we got our players back, we normally had a couple extra, which meant that we had people to be there to, knock the ball out for a corner or get the block in.
Okay. So I just want to echo a few sentiments from the chat there. So a couple of people have talked about will we be playing reserves against Liverpool on Saturday? And another person just said, can we secure an FA Cup finalist spot? Seems like some of our players got injured. Listen, will we even have 11 fit players to field on Saturday? Don't know yet, because there was a lot of blood and a lot of knocks and a lot of blood, guts and thunder. Absolutely crazy scenes that, how we're expected to now go and play again on Saturday. But isn't that that's Manchester City? And the crazy thing is that the thing that we've been banging on about all season, we've literally got a first team squad of of 12, maybe 13, arguably maybe 13, and a couple of reserve goalkeepers. This is crunch time, ladies and gentlemen. This is absolutely crunch time. And the beautiful thing is, look, as long-suffering Manchester City fans, we're in the semi-final of the FA Cup. We're now into the semi-final of the Champions League. What's this now? Is this the second year running? I can't really remember. Well, obviously the second year running at least because we were in the final last season. But now I want to talk about City ghosts. And you're thinking, what me on about here? Usually, a former City player comes back against us and gets their obligatory "I used to play for City" goal. Stefan Savic tonight.
Yeah.
There was a point in the second half when he's marching into the area, and if he was a little bit more central, he was beating Ederson. Did your heart leave your body at that point?
I thought he was too far wide.
But ultimately, he was too far wide because it was well wide the shot. But were you getting those City ghosts sort of?
No, I mean, Savage tonight was the ghost of elbows and headbutts and arguing and shouting, and he defended pretty well. I mean, we can't knock their defence for how it played as a unit. They didn't really, we got a couple of good chances in this game, and we got a couple of good chances in the first game. Arguably we probably had the four best chances of the tie, and we probably should have, at least got one more of them in. But I don't know. I wasn't really. I didn't. To me, they looked like they were a bit panicked, and I felt like I was watching one of those City games where we just can't score like Palace, and Atleti were a bit like that. I wasn't.
Do you
I
think?
don't know. I wasn't
convinced
they were going to score.
Do you think?
I thought we were going to score on the break. I really did.
See, I think that's a bit 50-50, Rich. We were going to score on the break. They were going. I don't think we actually. By the way, Rich, I know I gave you the passing percentages before. I don't think we registered a shot on target. Do you think that was kind of like the anti-Brexit, almost as if Europe divorced England? You know what I mean? Because I've never seen football like that in my life before. Now, in the first game, they played a flat-back 5-5 they were accused of, or a flat-back 10, whatever you want to call it. In tonight's game, they played like I said, that classic Wimbledon team, but on steroids. It was absolute insanity. And I don't know how a team full of such talent, because that Atletico team is full of talent. Although I will be very critical of Lamar. I believe his name's Lamar. It was at Arsenal at one point, apparently, I got told. But
he was,
if he could actually find a final pass, they would have been. You're talking about getting him on the break. If that Lamar, before he got hooked off, if he could have found the ability to pass to the player he was intending to pass to, they quite easily could have had us on the break about 3 times. And I'm just thankful that it was him making the pass, because he was crap. He didn't get one pass all night to the player that he was trying to get the ball to.
No, and they weren't that. I mean, to be fair, the other thing I'd say about them is they're not quick. They're quite. I've seen what Gundogan and Laporte basically run down Griezmann. In the games. Felix is talented. He's maybe quicker than the others, but he's not someone who really gets behind in space. And I think that's probably one. They need a bit of pace if they're going to play that style of football. They need a Spanish Jamie Vardy or something, because
maybe. Ronnie's just told me, by the way, Rich, that we had 2 shots tonight, 1 on target, and they had 13 shots and 2 on target, that's 200% more than the shots they had last week. So that's they can note that in the improvement column. Yeah. Now, Rich,
shot that was on target for us was the post, which was should have been a goal.
Do you? I tell you what, we'll answer that question right now before we get onto the substitutions. Would you take Felix if we don't get Haaland? The only reason I'd take Felix is because I feel sorry for the guy. I think he should be playing for a football team, not that. The guy's clearly got talent in spades, and they play anti-football at Atletico. That's the only reason I'd personally take him.
Do you know what? I would not take Felix instead of Haaland.
No, not
You
obviously. No, Rich, come on,
take
I'm Mr.
Felix.
Haaland. I'm
Yeah,
Mr. Haaland, mate.
if Mahrez was to go, I'd take Felix playing, one of those wide centre forward roles we've got. I think he's a great player and he'd do that well, but he's not an out goal scorer. He's not
No,
the pinnacle of our
he's
team
a
that we
talented
need.
kid. Colin
Yeah, but
Pollock's
he's
just said,
not.
by
He's
the way,
not a
Rich.
nine. He's not a nine.
Colin Pollock's just said in the chat there, if Stefan Savic is a footballer, then I'm a bowl of soup. So, yeah, pretty much. Right, the substitutions, Richard. You don't have to do them in order, and you can talk about any specific ones you want to talk about. Obviously, you know who I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to let you get the first bite of the cherry. Substitutions.
Substitution. Well, firstly, I would have taken off Foden, because I think he was an injury or a red card waiting to happen. He'd been abused. I mean, that's the only word you can really use for it. He'd been abused, and therefore, I think almost for his protection, but also the protection of City having 11 players. I think De Bruyne had to go. I think he had a bit of a knock. He's already on a yellow, so I think De Bruyne was tired, so he had to come. So I would have probably taken off both of those two. I'd have pushed Bernardo back into mids. I think Fernandinho, it was right to bring him on because if ever there's a time we needed experience and a little bit of our own shithousery, it was then. And so I'd have probably brought on Fernandinho and Sterling. I thought Sterling's pace, and Sterling's generally fairly calm as well. He can take a lot, and he's had to in his career. So I'd have brought on those two, but I would have taken off Foden with De Bruyne and, kept Bernardo playing.
I agree wholeheartedly with taking De Bruyne off, but I am going to agree completely with what Ronnie's just said in the chat there. The players think that Foden was crucial to getting us up the pitch and relieving the pressure. I agree with him completely. Foden learned. Now, Foden is one of the most technically gifted footballers in the entire world.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
But he learnt tonight how to survive against Dagenham and Redbridge in the bloody Sunday League. I'm sorry, I apologise to Dagenham and Redbridge. I didn't mean to slander you that much. Maybe Peterborough. Who's a Peterborough? Whatever. Make whatever joke you want.
Yeah.
Insert whatever crap football team here. Phil Foden learnt a lot of lessons tonight, Rich, and he was the outlet that did relieve some of that pressure. And it wasn't amazing pressure and it wasn't clinical pressure. But you know what, Rich? A broken clock is right twice a day. And without the relief of that pressure, Atletico could have got in. Now, what I will say is, the substitution I want to talk about, Richard, and this is the bleeding obvious, the ministry of the bleeding obvious. Fernandinho, and I'm saying this to everybody who cares to listen, Fernandinho, when he came on, showed in 5 seconds of football why Rodri is a passenger. Because Fernandinho got into the back of players. Me and Ronnie, I was talking to Ronnie and a couple of others throughout the game, and me and Ronnie said, right, how long before Fernandinho gets that yellow card, mate? Because Fernandinho came on with the intent of full-blown Brexit football. He went through the back of a player, he made a beautiful tackle, he actually was pressing forward, we got further up the pitch, we were in their half, because Richard, we didn't spend an awful lot of the second half in their half. And also, he was also running back like he was a prime 21-year-old at one point. I don't think he could make that run more than once a week, but he did it. I'm telling you, Fernandinho, I wish we could clone him. And I know that there are Rodri fans out there, and I know that there are justice for Rodri fans and all that waffle, but Rodri is always going to pale in comparison to that man, Fernandinho.
But, I don't think there's a defensive midfielder in Premier League history. I think Roy Keane, Pale, or even Vieira aren't at Rodri, at Fernandinho's level. I mean, and, we had the double trouble is that after Rodri, got his yellow, he was, which was at the end of the first half. So he was, or was that early second? So he was, having to tread a very fine line. And when he was overloaded, you don't want a central defensive midfielder who's overloaded, who's tired, and has already got a yellow card. So Ferner was absolutely desperately needed to come on, and at least Fernandinho could come on, take a yellow, and also show his experience and and try and calm things a bit, because it got, the plot was lost in the end of that game, and the frustration on both sides was, and to me it was because the referee, if the referee had, at the absolute very least given a yellow for that, I think it should have been a red for that foul on Foden.
Well,
if he'd have given a yellow and said any more of that and you're off, and told the other players next time it's a red, he would have got. But he let everything go, and because of that,
there's been a bit of a debate in the chat here, Rich, about Riyad Mahrez' contribution tonight. He frustrated me. I think that's the only way I can put it, really, without getting into it and without getting angry and aggressive. No, he actually frustrated me tonight, Riyad Mahrez. I think Riyad Mahrez has been mostly fantastic this season in the Champions League. This is his competition, but he frustrated the hell out of me at points tonight. And I think it wasn't about his positioning and it wasn't about his runs. It was more about his choice of pass, and I don't think that's wholly on Mahrez, because
I don't think the players moved for him. I mean,
yeah,
he was responsible for the only moment of magic in that entire game. The only moment of true world-class quality in that game was Mahrez's ball to Walker, which was, that deserved a goal on its own, and it should have been a goal. We should have finished that. But apart from that, he did run, beat 3 players, and then get tackled about 5 times. And that frustrated me, because he shouldn't be doing that. But then at the same time, I think he partly did that because there was no one in the right position for him to pass to. So our movement to keep the ball going was either Atleti were shutting down every option very effectively, and we probably should give them some credit for that, or we weren't moving well enough, because we did have it about 5 times in that game. Mahrez just had to run from the wing, beat 3 players, go into the middle, and then when he got to the 4th player, they took the ball off him, and Atleti had the ball back. And it came to.
Let's have a look at some other players here, because we've just had Bernardo frustrated me tonight. Nick, I don't disagree with you in some regards, Nick, but there are some things I will say. Bernardo Silva, we've already said, the first 20 minutes of the game, on the left wing, absolutely pointless. He came into the middle and we got more balance in the first half. In the second half, the thing is, I've always had this conversation, because believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there are some people out there that don't like Bernardo Silva, okay? From tonight's performance, hold on. I've got to be very careful in way I say this. I don't know why Watch Wide Web. I don't know why he's made that comment, because English might not be your first language, because you didn't understand the analysis we just gave. So the argument that I've had with people, because I love Bernardo Silva, love everything about him. The argument they make is, what's the point in Bernardo? All he does is run about. He's not finding us an attack, and he's not beating players and stuff like that. And that's so these are the anti-Bernardo people making that argument, Rich. They're saying Bernardo Silva, he does a lot of running, but he doesn't beat players. He's not exciting. You remember the Bernardo Silva that was at Monaco? He's not that player anymore, right? He's matured into a different player. And again, that criticism was alive again tonight. But I think Bernardo did do a hell of. I mean, let's be honest, right?
He did. It wasn't his best game.
It wasn't. This was a 60-70% game from Bernardo Silva, but. We're not. Nobody's saying that. Patrick, calm down with the typing, Patrick. Bloody hell, we're not saying he's immune. We're literally in the middle of a critique of Bernardo Silva right now. He ran. What was it? I believe it was between 11 and 13 kilometres. Oh, Rich has gone on mute now. It was I believe that against Liverpool, Bernardo Silva ran between 11 and 13 kilometres. Tonight he played again. 2, 3, 4 days later, and I think he ran another 11 kilometres. But some more of that flair was a little bit missing from our Bernardo tonight. So, is there any critique you want to make?
For me, Bernardo is the player who just knows where there is a gap in the team and knows how to go there. And I like Bernardo. I like Bernardo best when De Bruyne doesn't play. I think Bernardo loves the responsibility when De Bruyne's not playing, and he feels that he can be, number one. He feels that he can run the team. And I think when De Bruyne's playing, De Bruyne is number one and runs the team. And when he plays like that, what Bernardo does is he knows whether it's helping out Rodri at the back and coming back to get the ball and start the move, or whether it's overloading on the left or the right. Bernardo knows where to be, and he's an incredibly talented footballer. He's got the energy and the motor to do everything we need. If we need a bit of extra shithousery, breaking up an attack, he'll do it. If we need someone at the back post to get a goal, he'll be there. And that's Bernardo. He's just an everyman.
There's something worth mentioning from Nixie in the chat there. So in the last 2 weeks, if you look at the 2 week frame that we're in right now, Atletico, Liverpool, Atletico, Liverpool. We've just done the third of the four.
Yep.
If players weren't tired tonight, we'd be accusing them of pulling a Leicester City, wouldn't we? You know what I mean? Seriously, of course the players were going to be tired tonight.
We wouldn't be happy, and
you know what? Henry Hayes has just absolutely hit. Henry, you have come out of the wings, out of nowhere, and absolutely hit on the nail on the head. Tonight wasn't even a game of football. It was awful, but however, this is the proudest I've been of City in a European competition. I absolutely agree with you completely, because it was awful, it was dogged, it was ridiculous, it was anti-football, it was anti-City, it was anti, up the ante and everything. But Manchester City, what is that famous thing? When all around you lose their head, blah, 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 keep you cool, all that nonsense. That's what Manchester City did. We didn't need to go there tonight and do anything other than get to the semi-final. That's exactly what we did. We got to the semi-final.
And I have to say, I think, watching the game on the chat, all I see non-stop every game is how absolutely awful our defence is. And that's now 400 minutes of arguably the highest. I think the Premier League's probably higher, but universally seen as the highest form of football on the planet, the Champions League. And we've just gone, half a game against PSG, 2 last 16 games, 2 quarterfinals without conceding a goal.
Absolutely.
And I think our defence deserves a lot of credit for, especially tonight, where my big takeout for tonight, and it's my big worry for the rest of this season, and it was a worry on a par with the number 9 in the summer, was our midfield looks exhausted, and people talk about what we're going to play on Saturday. Now at the back, I'm not worried. Diaz can come in, Ake can come in, Zinchenko can come in. We can have a near fresh quality defence against Liverpool. Up front, Sterling can come in.
All right, Rich, we'll get on to Rich. You're so excitable. We'll get on. Have you been on the Smarties this morning, Rich? You're so excitable. There's a couple of things I want to say.
It showed tonight.
I get it, Rich. I get it, mate. And we'll get onto it, mate. We will get onto it. I've just got to address some things in the comments. Ozzy, I'm going to ask your question in a minute, but I just want to say what Patrick Holly's just said. We've shithoused the shithoused, plain and simple, and we're through. Fact. And then Yaswizi said, Nathan Ake is criminally underrated. If he gains more confidence, he could be world-class. The guy's 27. I won't go as far as to make the world-class leap, but when Nathan Ake did come on tonight, now, there was an analysis that I made to the people that were listening to me in the conversation I was having with some of the subscribers before, some of our friends. In the first half, when Cancelo was at left-back, when he was defensively heading the ball, he was putting the ball back across Ederson, which is absolutely criminal. There is no level or school of thought in football that says play the ball back defensively back across your own area with a defensive header when you're being pressed by the opposition. When Nathan Ake did come on, Nathan Ake showed everybody how to take a header. You absolutely shithouse it and punt it to near the halfway line. Nathan Ake, when he came on tonight, has earned even more prestige in my books. And I am hard to please. Right, so now I want to ask the question that Ozzy asked. Is there a question that needs to be asked? City and Liverpool are the best 2 teams in Europe, City being first, Liverpool being a distant second. But both teams are making those mistakes in letting the games run away from them. Are they both exhausted? I think that's what you're saying, because you spelt it wrong. But Manchester City have played 2 Champions League games against the shithouse of football. and conceded 0 goals. Manchester City played against Liverpool at the weekend, conceded 2 goals. One of them was a horrendous individual mistake in my point, but if you want to go back and look what we said about Liverpool, go back and watch that post-match. But Rich, what do you think? Are the teams is the game on is the game on Saturday going to be an absolute write-off damp squib, and it's going to be about?
No, I think Liverpool left out about 7 players tonight, so Liverpool should be fine for Saturday. They're going to have had most of their team will have had a 6-day break, and I think they have actually crucially got a little bit more depth in midfield than we have. I think we'll be able to field a fresh defence, a fresh attack, and obviously keeper's not an issue. But I am worried about our midfield. We rely on, Fernandinho will have to play, I think, on against Liverpool because Rodri needs a rest. He can't play another. He can't play another
double
game.
Pivot maybe with Gundogan.
And I'm worried that possibly I wouldn't want. I'd want De Bruyne getting a rest after the last week. So maybe it'll be a funny midfield. Fernandinho, maybe we can get Fernandinho, Bernardo and Gundogan. I guess Gundogan didn't play against Liverpool, but it does worry me that midfield is tired and they're not young. Gundogan and De Bruyne, 30 and 31 now.
Well, Rich, can I just say something now about the difference between Manchester City and Liverpool? Manchester City have got 5 strikers. It's Manchester City. I wish Manchester City. Liverpool have got 5 strikers that they can freely rotate all the time. And every single team, apart from Manchester City, that play against Liverpool, instantly capitulate, melt like wallflowers. Look at West Ham, who really pissed me off because West Ham battered Liverpool and just decided not to shoot. Whatever. Liverpool do have a bigger squad than us, although they do like to lie and say it's the other way around. They do have a fresher squad than us simply because of the numbers, and they do have more options. You're talking Origi, you're talking Firmino, you're talking Jota, you're talking, Diaz, Salah, Mane, blah 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 blah. You're talking all that crap. That might come into play on Saturday, but I think we've been going on now for 42 minutes, Rich. People, I think, are enjoying what we're saying. I think. But we would be criminal if we didn't talk about the last 10 minutes of whatever the hell happened there in that absolute demolition derby of carnage. Talk us through it, Richard.
Well, firstly, we already knew we were going to have a bloody lengthy injury time with Walker. I think he went down with his ankle. But then, in the moment of just sheer snide shithousery that Simeone would probably be very proud of, Felipe goes in hard. They get the ball, and then he can't resist having a little kick at the back of Foden. So he's still moving, and he just goes for a kick. Foden reacts, as does Zinchenko reacted, Ake reacted. I mean, it was just in some ways it was bad, and it probably looked even worse than it.
Jack Grealish didn't even come on the pitch, and he still got his hair pulled.
Yeah, and then it went off, and I think that was, in one sense, it was City saying enough, and actually, if you actually watch it, it was actually the Savic should have gone because he tried a headbutt, push, and everything else, but actually we were a bit more controlled in that melee than they were. They really started to lose there. They completely panicked.
Daddy Zinchenko took charge of the situation, Richard.
Yeah, and we looked like we were almost playing that up. We're going to come in, we're going to...
You know what, yeah, Colin Pollock's just come up with a great point there. Where was VAR? Nobody knows where VAR was, but thankfully nobody knows where VAR was because I am going to argue that Atletico maybe should have had a penalty.
It wasn't maybe, it was definitely a penalty. I'd be livid if that had gone the other way. And like most bad penalty decisions, it's kind of interesting because I feel that whenever we get a bad penalty decision, it's brushed under the carpet.
Sorry, just to interrupt you, Rich. Speaking of criminal decisions, only 23 people have liked this stream, so obviously you've upset Richard now.
outrageous.
Richard is on holiday at 5 o'clock in the morning doing this stream with you, and at least half of you can't even be bothered clicking a button to say that you appreciate what. Yeah. Back to Atletico's penalty.
Yeah, and it was almost like I always feel that we deserve a penalty, we don't get it, and then the coverage sweeps it under the carpet. But it was the opposite tonight. Atletico got a penalty, and you know what? I think that penalty wasn't given because of the absolutely ridiculous, stupid, simulated fall/dive that their player did when Cancelo fouled them. And if anything is karma, it's that shithousery and feigning and cheating has possibly cost Atletico, because I think it was a penalty, clear one, and they didn't get it, and they didn't deserve it. So, karma.
Karma's a bitch. Rich, you've done an awful lot of swearing for a guy on holiday. Is there anything else you'd like to say about tonight's game, Rich, or are you gonna need a few days to process it?
Probably not. I think, as I say, my worry after tonight, and this is for Liverpool, but even more so for Brighton coming up next week, which, you know, is as important a game as the Liverpool game. And then we go into another, you know, Watford, and then we've got Real Madrid and going to Ellen Road and Real Madrid again. We've got some brutal games coming up, and I'm worried about our midfield. I'm worried that Rodri looks tired, Gundogan looks tired, De Bruyne looks tired, Bernardo looks tired. They're not young, any of them. I mean, you know, and I guess Rodri's young, but he's a big guy. He's not the guy designed to be playing 3 times a week. I'm worried about how Pep is going to, you know, is he going to magic Foden or someone else into midfield in a couple of games? Is Fernandinho going to be able to start 3 or 4 games now and actually give us a break? Because
I'm hoping
if not, I worry we're going to run out of steam in midfield.
See, Richard, and say the same about Liverpool, mate, because Liverpool have got to play Everton, Tottenham, and United. Now, United, I'm sort of like, God knows what team turns up in the United show. Everton, it's a Merseyside derby. Anything can happen, blah, blah, blah. We all know we'll all be supporting Everton that day because Copites are gobshites. And then other than that, Tottenham. Now, if Tottenham dare to turn up against Liverpool like they turned up against us, then that's 3 points for Tottenham, surely.
Tottenham have got the attack in Son and Kane to damage them, because we saw the damage we did to Liverpool's defence, and I think, you know, we don't have anyone as clinical as those two. So, you know, they could do damage, and they are. I think after Liverpool, they've got the most points in the Premier League since January the 1st.
Now, Richard, so it's just been said there, Rich. What about our reserves and our academy players? Yeah, we've got reserves and we've got our academy players. Unless Liverpool lose their next 3 games and we win the next 3 games, don't ever expect to see academy players playing this season. There'll be no Palmer, there'll be no McAtee. Unfortunately, we're desperate to see them, but it won't happen.
We can't blood them now. It's, you know,
imagine McAtee tonight against Atletico, Rich, or Cole Palmer tonight against Atletico. It'd be in an ambulance.
Yeah. No, and I think it's a mistake we've made not blooding those players much earlier in the season, because
absolutely,
you know, if we get an injury in midfield now, we're going to have to either bring someone like Grealish or Foden into midfield who hasn't played there all season and effectively blood them as a midfielder, or we're going to have to bring in a kid who's not played, and they're going to have to come in a game that's 5 times as pressured as it would have been if they'd have, you know, been, you know, playing earlier in the season.
Well, Rich, tonight has mostly been a story of the dark arts of Atletico Madrid. Now, Chris, our friend Christopher in the chat, has just brought up an interesting point there. Should we have had a COVID outbreak just like Liverpool did? Speaking of dark arts, I mean, that was magnificent for them, wasn't it? And if they do win trophies this season, there won't be an investigation. There won't be any nonsense. You know, City miss 1 game because we've got 23 players out with COVID. We almost get the butch. But
do you know what? that was a play completely from the Boris Johnson playbook, and for the team formed by a Tory politician, it was completely what I'd expect.
Yeah, Richard, so final thoughts on Diego Simeone. We won't have to face him now, thankfully, unless we have that's it till the end of the season. No more Simeone, no more dark arts, no more Atletico until at least next year, when we'll probably get in the group with them and they'll kick the shit out of us again. Are you glad to see the back of them? And are you excited for Liverpool?
I'm glad to see the back of them. I wouldn't mind. I don't know. I don't think there's a Madrid derby coming up, but I'd quite like Atletico to have to play Real Madrid in the next week or two and do to Real Madrid what they did to us, so that Real Madrid come into their games against us with a bit of a knock. I haven't minded watching them do it to Madrid and Barca, but watching when you're actually playing them, it's just like, it's not football.
Well, I'll tell you something, Rich. Speaking of not football, Andrew W's just said there, he thought that Sterling coming on was a poor shout. Yeah, it was a gamble for Sterling to come on. It was ultimately, it was ineffectual. And you're saying that you think that Jack would have had them down to 8 men. You think the referee's on our side, mate? Wobble. And I know I'm not a Jack Grealish fan, but you know what? I'm glad that Jack Grealish didn't come on tonight, because he would have had his hair pulled out and he would have been as bold as Pep. Because Atletico would have beat him. They would have beat the snot out of him.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have been modelling any Gucci clothes for a few months because he'd had 5 black eyes. Right, no. So, Rich, the last thing to discuss now is we're still in it. We're still in all the races. We're still there, leading the pack. Apparently, we're in for the FA Cup potentially, the Champions League potentially, and the Premier League. We're still in the driving seat for most of those competitions, if not all. The only sour note, in my opinion, is that ultimately all we can do is match Man United's 99 treble.
Yeah.
Tin as we blew the...
That wouldn't be sour. That wouldn't be sour for me if we matched that. I think, one good thing with Real Madrid is Real Madrid have a very ageing midfield, which is my biggest concern about City at the moment. So, I don't think we'll...
If anyone saw Luka Modric's passing last night, oh my God. Now, I've just had an amazing comment there from Scotty Moll. Hi all, didn't know Tony Pulis managed Atletico. Now, I tell you something, Scotty Moll, the amount of abuse that we've give that club shop wanker that is Tony Pulis over the years, beating his Gillingham at Wembley, beating his Stoke at the new Wembley, I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually Scooby-Doo and Simeone pulled his mask off to reveal Tony Pulis.
Yeah, could well be.
And Andrew W's just ripped off my joke from Twitter there. Not a bad pass by Gail Platt last night. Well done for ripping off my joke. I'll let you have it. Final thoughts, Richard, because we've been waffling for 52 minutes and your kids clearly want to go and have an holiday.
Yep. Final thoughts. We're through to the semi-finals. I hope every player is currently in an ice bath, getting their injuries tended to, and hopefully we can pull a decent side together on Saturday and give a fresh, rested Liverpool a game, because we're really going to have to pull one out of the bag there. But we're 3 out of the 4 games. We haven't lost one yet, so let's keep that going and let's get through this brutal week and a half, and onwards and upwards, and hopefully a bit of a rest for some of the players soon.
Absolutely, and come on, Man City! Yeah, enjoy, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you joining us. We love you all. We'll see you all again sometime. Apparently, everyone on the Mancunian way is on holiday, but at least Rich still takes his responsibility seriously. Good night and goodbye.
Good night.
It's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Bye-bye.